VannKraken here, World of Warships Legends Alpha Tester. You spent your time, your money, or both on a campaign to get the Tier 7 Soviet light cruiser Ochakov. And today we are going to give you a quick setup guide and 3 play style tips that will help you have a lot more fun and have a greater impact with this ship. On today's World of Warships Legends HardShips, we'll transform your Ochakov from a long-range HE spammer into a cap-controlling wrecker of havoc and tears that lives constantly on an exciting edge between the front line, back line, and everywhere in between. So what exactly makes Ochakov, launched in the Taken by Storm campaign, so easily misunderstood? It all comes down to players settling on taking the more comfortable and easy way out of backlining this ship instead of playing her to her inherent strengths. First, she has a small health pool and doesn't have the world's greatest concealment rating, so a lot of players simply pigeonhole her as a ship that needs to stay way behind the front line to survive because she is fragile when citadeled and seems frighteningly vulnerable when matched up against legendary tier monsters. Second, she has only 8 6-inch main battery guns, which seems severely underpowered on paper. But they do have a high rate of fire, improved HE shell penetration, and a decent fire chance that work well enough to let players settle for spamming from a safe 16+ kilometer distance. Third, her great agility and skinny hull make her very hard to hit reliably at long range, where she can safely live further into a match, especially in the hands of players with little cruiser experience, but at the major cost of sacrificing her significant cap support and destroyer hunting value. And finally, her 12-kilometer radar has a big reach that is currently unprecedented in Legends and is a vital feature, but it has such a short duration that can be of little or no value if used at the wrong time or place, such as too far away from an objective. So a lot of players will likely give up on it as a gimmick rather than understanding what an incredible tool it can be. So let's try to define what playstyle choices work best for Ochakov by considering 2 factors: how hard we either try to shoot stuff versus how hard we work to see stuff with our radar in a match. If we minimize risk by not getting close enough to objectives to use radar, we wind up in a backline spammer role, in which we shoot a lot of HE from maximum distance and zoom around to avoid taking return fire. Or even worse, a shy survivor role where we stay second or third line back from the front or park behind an island, only firing our guns when we have a low chance of being targeted by the enemy ships. These approaches have an inherently lower impact damage farming quality to them that surely leads to players saying that this ship is just another boring, long-range, spammy cruiser. But why do we have that unique radar? It's got to be there for a reason, right? If we take more risks to get closer to the front line in the caps, we can spot ships with our radar and step into either a hunter-killer role, in which we hit and run at short ranges to keep our guns hot and working down destroyers and cruisers. Or we can play a vision controller role, in which we don't shoot our guns as frequently but do stay tight to the front, remain hidden behind terrain, and pick our spots to get on the attack when we can have a high impact in a short period of time with our guns and torpedoes and disappear again like a ghost. These last 2 roles that focus on seeing stuff while engaging in varying levels of supporting fire are how Ochakov can have a high impact on both your score and your team's ability to win. So let's show you how to take this ship from snoring to roaring. First off, let's quickly review how we can set up Ochakov for success in closer quarters action before she leaves port with regard to useful commander and modification selections. He's back, and bountifully and beautifully bearded. Stepan Makarov, lauded on my YouTube channel for his abilities in the Kutuzov Doppelganger Deathmatch, is also at the helm of my Ochakov on a day-to-day basis, where he is even better suited to thrive in this shiftier ship. We tap both survival and attack qualities in our build as we use the skills of our commander and modification effects to both amplify Ochakov's agility and versatility and improve her main battery firepower. From a survivability perspective, we boost maneuverability with Makarov's skills Full Speed Ahead, Velocious, and Steer Clear, add Ingenious to let us know how many ships are actively targeting us, and round things out with Legendary skill Fully Packed to get more consumable charges. Meanwhile, our survival-based modification choices enhance concealment rating and steering. On a quick side note, a viable alternative to this build is to add a commander inspiration like Gunichi Mikawa to help further reduce detection distance, but we are going to use that slot for increased firepower instead. And to that point, from an attack perspective, we kick up our cruiser main battery accuracy and HE shell damage by choosing Norman Scott and Andre Rieu as commander inspirations, and add further buffs to main gun accuracy and range with our modification selections. Oh, and the previously mentioned ingenious skill also increases our turret rotation speed too. Overall, we've engineered a more agile and resilient Ochakov that will serve us well in an up-close vision control role, with maximized main battery firepower to get the most out of our 8 6-inch guns when we corner our destroyer and cruiser prey. Now that Ochakov is set up and ready to do battle, let's move on to 3 tactical playstyle tips of do this, not that, to raise her in-your-face, in-game performance level and your pulse rate. And here we go with point number 1. Do patrol and protect caps, but do not head straight into the cap circle at the start of the match. Ochakov's radar makes her a potent threat to destroyer and cruiser foes alike, as both ship types generally have little armor and smaller health pools that can vanish quickly under withering focus fire delivered by you and your team. So catching these ships out in vulnerable frontline positions is key to being a cap wrecker. To do that, you have to try to position your ship in an area that is near a capture point, optimally in a spot where you have some protective cover available, since Ochakov's concealment value is not stellar at just less than 12 kilometers with my preferred build. If you're a science geek like me, you may have heard the term Goldilocks zone with regard to where the Earth lies in our solar system in relationship to the Sun. Not too far from our energy source as to freeze, and not too close to be burned to a crisp, but at a just right distance if you use the analogy from the fairy tale with the little girl harassing 3 bears. In a similar fashion, Ochakov is most useful as a ship that can control capture zones and hunt DDs with her amazing vision. So if you play too far back, her ability to do that is useless. On the other hand, if you get too close or inside the cap too early in a match, you can get detected and killed immediately, as her radar marks her as a priority target for the enemy team. So to be most effective, you need to find a just right deployment zone, like that perfect temperature porridge that makes Ochakov menacing to enemy destroyers and cruisers, but also able to survive long enough to exert her growing influence as the match timer ticks on. Taking some risk and being close enough to the cap on your initial deployment gives you the option of using your 12-kilometer radar to drape most or all of the cap with detection, even through islands. But it's really important to remember that staying out of the circle itself early on will keep the enemy in the dark about your presence by not tripping the cap timer and hopefully keeping you undetected until the right moment for you to become the aggressor and a vital spotter for your team. And a bonus tip is just to check the rosters before the match begins to assess the number of cruisers and destroyers on the enemy team, so you have some idea of what ships you might run across around the cap zones when play begins. Moving on to point number 2. Do use your radar at an advantageous time and place, not when it has little or no value. This means that you'll have to be constantly thinking about when the right time to trigger your radar consumable has arrived, such as if there is a concealed enemy spotting you that you cannot see, or one that is tripping the capture timer on the cap circle that you are stalking. This point sets up probably the most important concept to take away from this video. Ochakov has a detection range with just about any logical build of less than 12 kilometers, 11.9 in our case, and in comparison her radar has an awesome reach of 11.7 kilometers, which is roughly the same as or greater than her detection range. Therefore, Ochakov's superpower is that you can insta-spot almost any hidden enemy that is currently spotting you when you trigger your radar consumable. This also means you will be able to see any concealed ship in most or all of a cap circle if you are close enough to the edge for your radar to span the entire zone. This trick is guaranteed to catch many destroyer captains with their pants down and is one of the most fun reasons to play this ship. It makes Ochakov a constant threat to ships that choose to cap near her or dare to pursue her in open water. But like we said at the top of the video, it's an advantage that is completely squandered for your team if you sit back and spam HE from maximum main battery range. Another key point is to make sure that you and hopefully some teammates have an idea of a location of the target and clear lines of fire to it when you activate your radar. The range on your set is truly awesome, but its duration is only 20 short seconds. So the more guns trained on an enemy when it is lit up makes a huge difference in whether it can be killed outright by you and your team before the active radar cycle is over. And lastly, make sure that your life will not be immediately threatened when you open fire, by seeing if some of your teammates are already spotted and drawing fire and assessing whether you can easily slip back into a covered position behind terrain or have some open water to maneuver away in if necessary. Sometimes it's just best to illuminate a target for your teammates, scare off the destroyers to reset a cap timer, and keep your own gun silent when you'd be at great risk by firing after using your radar. And don't forget to use your command wheel to call for focus fire when it reveals your foe. And for our last tactical tip, number 3, do actively maneuver by kiting or evading foes with changes in direction and speed when detected. Do not sail in a predictable manner in straight lines at a constant speed. Enemy ships around the caps, including destroyers and mini cruisers, are stealthier than Ochakov by nature, so you are going to get detected sometimes, even when you are being quiet and careful. There will also be a constant flow of opportunities to deal damage in which you decide it's worth the risk to reveal your location to fire on enemy ships with your main guns as well. When these situations arise and we have to give up stealth, we need to put the Makarov agility-oriented build in Ochakov's hard-to-citadel hull to good use by twisting and turning like a demon to evade fire, get off rapid-fire main gun salvos of our own, and to utilize Ochakov's generous torpedo-firing angles and quintuple racks to deny paths of chase. We can live through some incredibly close encounters with powerful ships, including battleships and destroyers, while we're counterpunching and delivering damage in return. After the action is over, you'll be amazed by some of the situations that you not only survive but thrive in with Ochakov that would render other ships quite dead in short order. And if you want to brush up or learn something new, we have an entire video that you can review on open water cruiser kiting tactics in our library to help you refine your technique. Perfecting your kiting skills will allow you to frustrate and dominate ships far more powerful than your measly quote-unquote cruiser. Ochakov is a high-risk, high-reward ship that can wreak havoc on your opponents with vision control, shiftiness, and the surprisingly strong punch of both her main battery guns and her torpedoes. When you play the objectives early by either scaring key enemies like destroyers out of capture points, wounding them, or helping to kill them outright, you can really tilt the odds of success in your team's favor in a match. Eliminating enemy DDs is one of the most important things you can do in a game if you like to win, and pushing team point score totals away from the enemy's column and into your own can give your side the initiative. Ochakov can be a small ship with a big impact. But for full disclosure, an aggressive cruiser playstyle can be a pretty steep learning curve for newer players and requires building a strong sense of situational awareness, aided by tools like your detected indicator and the minimap, to pull off playing on the edge of caps consistently. It also takes a while to always get used to having an escape route planned in your mind too, for when things get just a bit too hot. But these 3 tips for powering up your Ochakov play can take your games to an incredible level in this unique and crazy fun ship with some patience and practice, resulting in more wins for both you and the teams that will be glad that they were lucky enough to load in with you. And finally, Ochakov will also reward you for getting into the heart of the action with good premium ship earnings multipliers on both XP and credits, and is also adept at knocking out a wide variety of medals required for missions too. So try to give yourself at least 25 to 30 games in Ochakov to get the hang of her very unique playstyle before you relegate her to Port Queen status, or for the love of God, consider selling her for silver. Please, just don't do that, because she's a really great ship once you get the hang of how to play her. You might be pleasantly surprised that you can even score dreadnoughts in Ochakov if you use your damage control consumables wisely. So for your viewing pleasure, why not take a minute to check out our very first Consumables and You guide that will be linked in the upper left corner of the screen to learn how to manage damage and keep your ship in the fight. And you can also check out other videos in our growing library of guides, tips, and tricks here on our YouTube channel, or catch us for a live stream here on YouTube or on Twitch. As always, I hereby wish you many radar thrills, destroyer kills, and great escapes, and offer my sincere thanks for watching. This is your friendly neighborhood VannKraken, and I am out.